Hey, Brian from I See the Dead, my YouTube channel, and I figured I'd just cover some different stories and situations that I've had throughout my life, my travels, and stories from me, stories that I've heard, stories that have been shared with me. This next one, I basically call it the Drowning Boy, and it was a time when I was on my milk route, and it was kind of summertime because I believe it was on the warmer side. Um, I had short sleeves on, but I usually wear short sleeves even during the winter months. Um, and I was driving down one of these streets in the Allentown area, and I thought I heard somebody like yelling out, like a small boy yelling out. So I kind of stopped the van. I rolled down the window, and I could hear this like blood curdling young boy screaming for help, screaming for his mom. I literally stopped the van in the middle of the street, put it in park, and I ran towards the noise, which was on the driver's side of my van. So I ran towards his house, and it had like hedges. It had a fence. It had a fence that was near just one side of the house. And it was kind of like one of those. It's not like those white picket fences, but it was like those white plastic. I forget what they call that, like PVC, I guess. So I went running towards the fence, and I mean, it wasn't a high fence. It was enough that I could kind of see over the top of it, and I saw a boy struggling in a pool trying to swim, and I could hear him screaming, calling out, "Help me, mom! Please help me! Help me!" So as soon as I peered over the fence, we like locked eyes, and he immediately stopped. It was like not that he wasn't swimming, wasn't like he was floating. It was just like he kind of had his arms spread out, and he was like had his head above the water, and he just kind of like it was weird. It kind of like he floated towards the edge of the pool and got out of the pool, visibly wet, but he wasn't visibly dripping water, which like kind of like cued me that like, hey, this is another one of these experiences that I'm having. Um, and he at that point he kind of ran up to the fence, and he was like looking up at me, and he's like, "Can you hear me?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can hear you." And he goes, "I've been calling for my mom, and she hasn't answered." Um, and I was just like, is she home? Like, what are you doing at a pool by yourself? And he just had this like blank stare on his face. And he goes, "No, I've been screaming for a long time." I'm like, "Oh, like how long have you been screaming? Are you okay? It looks like you can swim." And he goes, "No, I don't know how to swim." And which just kind of like blew my mind because I'm like, I just saw you come from the pool to the edge of the pool and get out of the pool. I was like, you know how to swim, right? He goes, "No, no, no. I was playing along the edge of the pool, and I fell in." He looked like he was probably 5, 6 years old, 7 at the most. He was a young boy, and he had like a swimsuit on, which like kind of was the other puzzling piece of the entire story. And I couldn't place what was like wrong, other than he was visibly wet, but he was not like dripping onto the ground. At this point, there's like a sidewalk, so the cement wasn't getting wet, but he was visibly like wet, obviously. So at that point, I kind of like looked to my left, and I could see the neighbors like looking out the window, and so I kind of like I was kind of like still talking with the boy, and I was looking over at the window. I remember asking his name, and he didn't reply. He just basically said, "My mom can't hear me." And then my mind started really racing. Like I was like, "Oh my goodness, what am I supposed to do here?" And I was like, "Can I help you? Is there anything I can do for you?" And he goes, "Can you just tell my mom that I'm okay?" And I started getting choked up. I could almost feel like a transfer of emotion. I mean, I visibly was upset. I could feel myself like tears coming on. And then the neighbors came out, and they started approaching me, but they were kind of like standoffish a little bit. They were looking at the milk van that was parked there. I think I had the door open. I'm not 100% sure. They were just like looking at me, and they're like, Can we help you?" And I'm sorry. I thought I heard a little boy screaming, and he was still standing right in front of me. But I knew at this point that they could not see him or hear him, for that matter. And they're like, "Oh," and I was like, "They're like, well, they're not home. They're not here anymore." So evidently they had moved after this incident had happened, and the house was still vacant. And just remember kind of like looking into the house window and kind of like seeing I mean, you can tell when the house isn't furnished. There's no pictures or anything else. It was kind of void of everything. And when I was talking to the neighbors, oh, okay. I was like, I thought I heard a boy in a pool, and there was a problem. And I was kind of like trying to seed the moment to try to get some more information from them. And they both got really pale, which is a common occurrence, I guess, when people get scared and stuff. They just kind of like drain. And they said, yeah, they had a son who was playing out in the backyard, and he evidently fell into the pool, and he drowned. The mom was doing laundry or something. They were saying, I can't remember, like doing clothes. I forget exactly what they said, but because the machines and stuff running, she couldn't hear him. And by the time she went looking for him, he was already dead, and he had drowned. Um, so the whole time I'm talking to these people, he was standing right in front of me on the other side of the fence, and completely stone faced, I guess, as you want to call it. Just no emotion, totally drained, but like still like wet and visibly dripping, but it wasn't even any drip marks. That's the thing that keeps playing over my head, is just that situation. And I know I've said in other videos that the detail that I get sometimes is extraordinary, and then sometimes details are like so void. But this one in particular, it was so vivid because he was cold. I could kind of like see his teeth chattering. I could see the water coming off his hair. His swim trunks were visibly wet. Um, and it was like, I, I just can't describe the emotion that I was going through, let alone what he probably went through calling out for his mom to come rescue him, which evidently didn't happen. So again, back with dealing with the neighbors, I quickly said, I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I heard somebody screaming out. My apologies." And then the mom looked at me and she goes, "Did you hear him?" And I kind of like looked at her. She looked at me, and I was like, "I thought I heard something." And she just looked at me, and she knew at that point I was lying, and I actually did hear and see him. And she goes, "What did he say? What did he say? Can you please tell me so I can tell his mom?" I'm sorry, but it was. I still get choked up because the emotion comes rushing back to me. The whole situation. Um, oh my goodness! But so it was so intense. I can't even begin to tell you. Um, but he just kind of faded from that situation. He knew that I was talking with this woman. I suspect that the woman probably had sensed something, had sensed his presence. I didn't want to really get too involved in the situation. Again, it was a past thing. I believe the family had moved. The house was abandoned, and these neighbors were still shaken up from what had happened. What I found out was probably about a year from the incident that I had stumbled upon. So again, it just makes me so tight like here when I talk about it. But yeah, it was an emotional time. To kind of to end things, I kind of started, you know, pulling back, walking backwards a little bit, and I was like, "Hey, I'm sorry to disturb you. My mistake. Please have a good day, and be safe." So I removed myself from that situation, and got myself in a van, and went from there. Now I got to be honest. If it was the family that had come out and started talking with me, I believe I probably would have shared that moment with them, with the neighbor and everything else. I know they were pretty shaken up and shocked about the situation as well. But I didn't feel like it was appropriate. I kind of felt that the boy didn't want me to um, talk with the neighbors because, like I said, he kind of pulled back and he started fading away. But it was just another example of some of the situations that I run across out there. And again, why I set this channel up, just to one, to share my experiences with others. If you have something similar, please share these with me. If you have a story that you'd like me to share on my channel, I would absolutely be happy to do so. If you want to remain anonymous, which is how I kind of like to keep a lot of this, because I mean it is a very personable, emotional experience between me and who I'm communicating with, me and the families that I'll be talking with or talk to. It's just, it can be an overwhelming emotional experience. So again, if you want me to share a story that you've wanted to bring some light on to, absolutely. Um, if you know somebody, please put them in contact with me, and leave a comment, what you think, um, any stories that you have, and we can explore all this together.